session is a solid waste recycling services update. Mr. Neal.
Afternoon, Mr. Neal. How you doing?
So members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on our transition efforts with the curbside recycling. During this presentation, we're going to provide an overview of the county's solid waste and recycling efforts and our transition plans for recycling efforts. With me today is Kim Hines, Rich Nolan, Bob Dunn, and Carrie Drain, our county representatives on the CVWMA board, and Jeff Howard, our solid waste and recovery manager. Kim's going to provide a brief overview of CVWMA, and then I'll give an update on our recycling efforts.
Afternoon, Ms. Hines.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Casey. Thanks for having me today. As John said, I'm Kim Hines, the Executive Director for Central Virginia Waste Management Authority. First, I'd like to thank you for your leadership and your support of the region, particularly your support of the CVWMA and our work in collaboration with the other 12 localities that are a part of our service area that are working together on better managing our waste. I was going to introduce our board representatives. Mr. Neal just did that, but Bob Dunn is a charter member and was instrumental in the formation of the authority in the late 1980s. So he is also our current chairman, a role that he has served in for the third time in his tenure on the board. Carrie Drain was appointed almost 2 years ago and has been engaged and has brought new and fresh ideas to the table for all to consider. Clay Bowles is also representative on the board from the county, and his input from the county's perspective has been invaluable. The authority strives to manage our region's waste, balancing environmental and economic impacts. We have a new strategic plan that was just adopted in June by the board that includes increasing recycling and waste diversion, and also exploring alternatives to landfilling our waste that will contribute to a more circular economy. The regional approach to recycling and solid waste management is beneficial to all localities in solid waste planning, meeting the state's mandated goals as it relates to solid waste and recycling, as well as provides an economies of scale in procuring services on behalf of multiple localities. We also recognize that one size fits all, so being a part of the authority allows you the flexibility to participate in regional contracts, but then also pick and choose from those that best fit your needs and the needs of your citizens. We know that there are multiple approaches to achieving the same or similar goals. So John's going to be presenting the history of the curbside recycling program, the recent procurement, and the transition to the private sector program. And although the county is taking a little bit different approach than historically to the residential recycling program, we will continue our partnership with the county on supporting recycling, increasing waste diversion through education and outreach. So I'll be here throughout the presentation to answer any questions that might come up that pertain to CVWMA and what we're doing. But again, just wanted to thank you for your support of the CVWMA, the region, and we look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
So just going over our overview of the solid waste management program, currently our households are served by private trash haulers, collections throughout the county. We transitioned to this private trash system in 2008. We are, as we're doing this effort, we're closely tracking the status of pending landfill projects in our county and other jurisdictions, recognizing that the capacity is diminishing throughout the life of the landfills. But the key thing is we do see an opportunity to inform households, homeowners associations, and businesses about the options of bundling trash and recycling services. And this is a key point that we'll talk a little bit more about throughout the presentation. So for a curbside recycling recap, As Kim stated, our program dates back to 1991 with the beginning of the program. And CVWMA was started to help localities meet the waste diversion requirements as set forth by the state of 25% diversion annually for all materials. At the onset of the program, private recycling was not available. Typically, Chesterfield and the regional partners achieve approximately 60% diversion rate, which includes all recycling methods and types of customers, curbside, convenience centers, businesses, and multifamily units. The diversion rate is measured by weight, tons of material hauled in trailers by numerous vendors, and aggregated by CVWMA into a single report for the entire authority and its member jurisdictions. Locally, Chesterfield single-stream recycling exceeds 14,000 tons per year. That's 13,000 tons via curbside and about 1,000 tons via convenience centers. Our staff continues to track this information regularly and will continue to refine the reporting, particularly as businesses and multifamily recycling increases going forward. This slide gives a brief financial summary of the curbside recycling program dating back to 1991. From 1991 to 2010, the county funded the program through its taxes. Then in 2010, we implemented a $25 per household fee to offset the cost of the program because of recession-related financial challenges. Additionally, we modified the program to allow citizens to opt out of the program, thus creating a modified subscription-based program. In 2020, we adjusted the fee to $40 with the goal to have the fees pay for the recycling program, with the key being no subsidy. We again adjusted the fee in 2021 to its current rate of $41 per household. It's important to note that through this transition to our current date, we have 18 communities, homeowners associations, which equates to approximately 8,000 households that have already implemented a bundled trash and recycling program with private sector haulers. Two of the larger examples are Charter Colony and Magnolia Green. In 2019-2020, we noticed a tremendous change in the recycling market. Overseas recycling commodities markets collapsed. The collapse resulted in projected subsidies over $1 million, which along with the looming contract expiration was a factor in transitioning to the break-even rate of $40 per year when we did in 2020. With the change in the recycling market, the growing subsidy projections, and the pending CVWMA contract expiring in 2023, we evaluated the program model. The evaluation outcomes continuing with the fee-based program based on the number of participants. Also, we committed to reviewing the fee each year and promote the opt-in model for households. The existing property owners can opt out if they want to do so. Our communication efforts include a welcome letter to all new residents that encourages them to opt into the recycling program. With the existing curbside recycling contract ending in 2023, CVWMA issued a request for proposal for two service models, a subscription model for Chesterfield and a base service model for the other jurisdictions. CVWMA received one bid for each service model. The subscription-based model would increase the cost by approximately $160 per year over our existing fee of $41. The base service model would cost $6.8 million per year for the 10-year contract. We explored options with the vendor, however, we were unable to develop a mutually agreed upon solution. Ultimately, the vendors wanted to engage the existing 60,000 opt-in households with a direct business customer model. Our preliminary research with local vendors showed a willingness to provide subscription model recycling service at approximately $84 to $120 annually, which is less than the bid received from the CVWMA procurement. Savings ranged from $82 to $118 per year based on the subscription-based bid from CVWMA. But if we decided to accept the base bid model from CVWMA, the per household pricing would have been on the higher end of the price range obtained from our local vendor research. Ultimately, our decision to use the subscription-based approach with local vendors provides the lowest cost for the citizens, while continuing to allow citizens and households the choice of whether to participate in the recycling program like our current approach. We anticipate this approach will allow for growth in the multifamily units and business recycling efforts throughout the county. This map shows the current households that have opted into our current program. The pink areas are the parcels where they've opted in. However, this does not necessarily mean these households are actively utilizing the curbside recycling program. The haulers we are working with have expressed plans to offer service countywide. The county will provide the current opt-in addresses to the haulers so that they can contact them and offer their services. TFC, which is the current vendor through the CVWMA contract, GFL, Choice Waste Services, and Waste Management have expressed interest in the private recycling program. Our next set of slides will address our transition plans and communication efforts. This new program will be a cart-based program, thus eliminating the difficulty to manage bins. The frequency of service will be determined by the selected hauler, but will either be weekly or every other week. The county will continue to offer free drop-off recycling at our convenience centers, both northern and southern. We expect some residents may want to opt out of the current program and select one of the 4 vendors before we end the current contract on July 1st, 2023. We're preparing to address potential financial shortfalls if households decide to opt out early from the program. For calendar year 2023, citizens can opt out by March 1st to avoid a first half fee of $20.50. Future operating and funding considerations are restoring the 7-day operations at the convenience centers and increased drop-off recycling availability for users. Although we are transitioning to a private recycling service, Chesterfield County will remain a part of the CVWMA. We will continue to support regional waste diversion mandates compliance and provide access to other efforts such as shredding and electronics recycling, which are both very popular events in the county. Chesterfield will continue to support CVWMA by providing our schools and citizens with educational and programming information with the emphasis on reduce, reuse, and recycle. And our educational programs will continue in the schools. Chesterfield County and the 4 vendors will support our households with the transition of recycling carts. The 4 vendors have expressed a willingness to provide stickers that can be placed on the existing carts so that they can be reused, or citizens can bring their old carts to the convenience centers to be recycled at no charge. The internal implementation and communication team, our internal implementation team consists of 4 county departments, each with a key role in ensuring that citizens receive information regarding the transition. Also, as part of the implementation, the transition team, we are partnering with 4 vendors that want to provide private recycling services to the residents. As mentioned in the earlier slide, TFC, the existing curbside recycling provider, GFL, Choice Waste Services, and Waste Management plan to contact the 62,000 curbside recycling households with their own marketing materials, especially those customers that receive trash collection services from one of those companies. Other planned information includes a website page with vendor contact information, press releases, continued close coordination with CVWMA and our appointed representatives to the CVWMA board, an explanation letter with instructions to every opted-in household, blog posts, and a modified new resident letter with the updated information about the transition to the private recycling program. This slide shows an example of what the updated website will look like. We'll have the contact information for the 4 vendors that have expressed interest in the program, along with the phone numbers and a link to their website on recycling information so that our citizens can go directly to that. The future of the program, as stated before, we will continue our efforts to develop new initiatives to maintain the county's contribution to CVWMA's strong waste diversion rate. Our staff has participated in CVWMA's strategic plan initiative to implement growth strategies for multifamily and business recycling, and will revise our reporting and tracking models to align with the privatized approach to ensure we are tracking valid data. We will engage in public outreach to encourage participation via haulers and with homeowners associations to demonstrate the successful implementation of the bundled trash and recycling models. And lastly, we will continue to monitor solid waste and recycling options to ensure county households have convenient service options. Members of the board, I thank you for your time and will attempt to answer any questions you may have.
You said, "I will attempt to answer any questions." I like that, Mr. Neal. Thank you. Questions, board members? I have a couple. So I think, and just as a statement, I think communication of this piece is going to be absolutely critical. And as people have long time used those green bins outside their house, and so I'm very happy to hear that the carriers, the private carriers, are going to take that on and contacting individual citizens. Nonetheless, I do think as often as we can, we need to be telling this story to citizens that this program is changing. One of the questions that I know will be asked, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask it, is that, so CVWMA is a diversion rate for recycling of 60%, which I think is pretty good. When you look at that entire region, I think that's excellent. And I guess the state's requirement of 25% is sort of a low threshold there. But anyway, 60% is fantastic. Do we think that this change will keep us in that range, or will perhaps increase the amount of diversion that we're seeing? In other words, how will it affect that?
We're anticipating that we'll still be able to maintain the 60% diversion rate, but with the inclusion of the multifamily units and the businesses, with that emphasis, we expect some growth in that area as well.
I think we may actually be able to increase it. I know one thing during the pandemic, and of course even since the pandemic, staffing, and wherever you go and whatever you do, staffing has been an issue. And I think that's because COVID, long COVID, people have had, some people have left the workplace and so on. Is that, is there a horizon on that as it affects our haulers and our carriers? And what are we hearing, I guess, from those private haulers right now about availability of labor and how that's going?
It's as with other industries, it's a competitive market. One of the issues that we're facing locally is with our equipment, being able to get new equipment. The availability of new trucks and new trailers is somewhat limited at this point. So.
And I noted that on here was talking about adjusting the hours of the convenience centers. I think that's something that certainly could help, and I certainly would support that effort from a budgetary standpoint. Other board members, does that prompt anybody else?
Yeah.
Questions? Mr. Holland?
I'll pick up there because that's why I wanted to encourage that we use the facilities centers and that we expand those as well for availability and no charge for citizens who would like to recycle. Chesterfield really recycles significantly, as noted, in the 60%, and so that should continue. And so I think we ought to look at other options for citizens who want to take the recycled items to the centers, the refuge centers, and look at what that might do, as well as continuing to, and I support also communicating this via as many mediums as possible. I saw the dates of next year, 23, but we want to start communicating that as soon as feasible. So I think a good plan to do that as well will be very helpful so that citizens understand the impact and how they can react to that impact on their families.
Our communication team is ready to go as quickly as this evening, perhaps.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking, I think, quick math, you said that potentially it could be $113 a year that someone could pay as a subscription for this, which comes out to about $941 a month, I think, something like that and change. You know, right now the two centers that we have, both the northern area landfill center and the southern area landfill center, are closed 2 days a week. And there's a fee to get in to actually dump. So how would a community, for example, who want to come there just to recycle, how would that work where they wouldn't have to wait in line to pay the $7 or $8 fee to come in and dump, number one? And then number two, really, have we done any way of tracking historically to see what days of the week someone would actually be coming in and dropping off recycling, because it may end up, like the chair had said, we may end up having to open up those recycling centers back to 7 days a week. But if we've got some statistical data that shows that, for example, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the big days that people are recycling, then we might not have to. But how do we get around having to pay the fee and wait in line? Because I do pay the fee and wait in line quite a bit at the Southern Area landfill when I drop my stuff off. But if someone's coming in to recycle and there's no fee, what can we do to change that?
Right, so the recycling, if you're there just to do recycling, there is no fee for that. But there is a waiting line where people are dropping off the trash and vegetative debris. So we'll have to closely monitor how we handle that with the uptick in traffic for recycling centers.
Right, but once someone gets past the gate, right, so once they pay their fee and they go in, well, then they can either go back to the right and dump off an appliance or leaves, or they can, I'm doing the Southern Area landfill, and then they can go make a U-turn and go up the dump. But I guess we're going to have to be more careful on inspecting what people are actually have in their vehicles to determine whether or not is in fact recyclables, or do they have both?
Our team, and that's some of the, that generates some of the lines at the convenience centers. We're checking what they're bringing in to make sure that they're not bringing in anything illegal.
Oh, they are. I've watched them. They do. They're very thorough. So I try to come up with a way that, if someone's there to recycle, that they don't have to wait in line somehow. And I don't know, we only have one line right now. Maybe we could look at putting two in, one on the right side of the entranceway that could be for recycling, and one on the left side could be for regular refuse.
Mr. Howard and I had some preliminary discussions about what that could look like, but yes, we definitely want to explore that.
Just to try and make it more convenient, because I think the more convenient it is, the more people will not mind doing it. But if they know they have to, on a Saturday, wait in line, I remember during COVID, wait in line 45 minutes to get in there and dump. And that was the first time that had happened, but so many people were staying home and taking care of projects that our landfills really got a tremendous amount of use during COVID, even during the weekday. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Engel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe you said it here, but I know I heard it in another presentation. As we transfer over, people are probably going to ask us, because they ask us now when they change trash companies, and the trash company won't pick up their bin, what they're going to do with the bins that they're currently using that will no longer be part of the process. And then I guess some people already have carts. And I don't believe we talked about that process of how they might be able to continue to use the same cart. So if you could.
For the bins, they can bring them to our convenience centers and we'll recycle them. For the carts, our vendors have expressed a preliminary interest in placing stickers over the CVWMA logos and be able to identify them by vendor that way.
Great. Dr. Casey?
Yeah, just one more, just math, because Mr. Carroll made a good prompt about the $113, and Mr. Neal referenced that as well. The math of that is a $6.8 million contract divided by the existing customers. That's how we, in essence, we've come up with the $41. It wasn't $6.8 million, of course. But the challenge with that is, and that's basically was the deal offered to the region through the contract. And that contract is, in essence, to the way the proposal of that service was done, is meant for 100% of the people. Now, again, as we know, many people aren't part of it. Many people actually now we're finding out are subscribing on their own. So for the $113, it's the $6.8 million divided by 60,000 is $113. The challenge with that, as you've heard, is if people are leaving that program and our 60,000 goes down to 50,000 or 40,000, because their neighborhood's getting a better deal, or they're getting a better deal, or they're going free to a recycling center, maybe with hopefully expanded hours and better convenience to get in and out of it, then if I just lowered the 60,000 number down to 40,000 people, the contract does not change. It stays at 6.8 million for 10 years, and so 6.8 million divided by 40,000 is a number above $170, which would mean more people would leave if we used our math. Eventually, technically under the contract, we could have one person who is still subscribed in Chesterfield County that under our math, we would have to charge them $6.8 million a year for that service. And so that's the dynamic that we wrestled with that subscription-based service that Mr. Neal referenced to, where the vendor would pay specific attention just to those 60,000 and lock in on a price, that was the $202 fee. Seeing that 84 to 120 as far as what the private sector is telling us, and that's where the private sector can be the best private sector, including TFC, who again is a reputable vendor, has their material recycling facility in Chesterfield County, and have been a great partner for many years. We want them to compete as well as anything to retain those customers and not fall prey to the nuances of these formulas that I just talked about before, because they don't necessarily want that or need that when they just have a customer base with a direct bill.
Well, Dr. Casey, I think you bring up a good point, and that is that I think we've seen that those number of opt-outs continue over the years, and that has caused some concern and more pressure on everybody else who remains in the system. So I think that point is well taken, and we can all do some of that quick math up here as well. So thank you. This has been very good. Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you all.
Thank you.